Hi, I'm Violeta, and this is my very first YouTube video. And I want to take a moment to introduce myself to you and just share why I opened this channel up and why in the next video I can say, Hi, I'm Violeta, and welcome to my channel. I have ADHD, and naturally, my brain runs at an incredible speed. I continuously think about random things. And when I say random, they are actually really random. They are things that, of course, probably you have thought about, so I'm not really unique in that way. But for example, what are things that ancient Greeks did at the time, or ancient Romans or Mesopotamians, that we do now? What are things that they did that we should do and we're not doing? Why do we say certain phrases? Where do they come from? Why is our language How is our language influenced? Why do trends repeat? How to predict trends? So all of these questions, they literally pop up all the time. Like I'm in the shower, I'm cooking, and they could just come out. And when a question like that pops up, I usually go into a rabbit hole. By the way, I am sick, as you can hear, and I am having my sage tea with honey, and I have also added a little bit of saffron that I'm gonna tell you about in another video perhaps, because I have seen such a spiritual change since I started taking saffron. But let's run out of time. Perhaps I'll cut it off from this one. See, ADHD. Where was I? For the longest time, I didn't know how to channel this. I didn't know how to channel this talent of having an ADHD and having the genuine curiosity of learning things, but without making them boring and without making them geeky. So, my God, 3 minutes to go to the point. That is the purpose of this channel. I'm not a historian, I'm not an academic, I'm just someone that's genuinely curious. And I grew up between cultures. My mom, she's Bulgarian, my dad, he's Persian, but also Turkish and Azeri. And then I lived most of my adult life in the Netherlands. I found myself a Greek partner there. I moved to Greece. So it's all such a, mess culturally speaking. I am a mess culturally speaking. So naturally, knowing all of these things, growing up with these cultures, getting introduced to these cultures, you start to ask yourself about the differences between them, the similarities between them. You just start to see the world a little bit different. Why do some countries value discipline, for example? Why do some cultures feel more expressive? Why are others perceived to be more reserved? Are they actually reserved, or are they perceived to be reserved? And even the smallest things, like the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we eat, the food. And at first I didn't even plan to talk about history. I'm not going to talk about only history. It just started being, it's just my curiosity got started by a thought, a question. And I started noticing things. I started noticing patterns, these patterns and these questions. By the way, pattern recognition is a super ADHD thing, but these patterns transcended from history to today. And then I started asking myself, why are there specific plots that we always watch on TV? I mean, I obviously didn't phrase it like that at the time, but I was like, okay, so this movie is always gonna end like that. Or, okay, I could be watching a movie for the first time and I already know how it's going to end from the first 10 minutes. I don't know how I do it. It's a super fucking power. It's a superpower. But I do it somehow. Or, for example, I can always recognize whether someone is the villain or not. And yeah, so I started asking myself these things. Okay, and then that led me to discovering the topic that there are actually only 7 plots in cinema that keep repeating, reusing, and they're just repackaged in a different way. The thing I was wondering is why do we, the general societal view of people is no matter how many psychologists, therapists, and everything comes into play, we have two types of people, and those two types of people are always divided. Someone we see someone who's like, oh, it's very disciplined. They wake up at 5 a.m., they go to work, and then the other one is we perceive as someone who is not so disciplined, but they're more creative. And then I started thinking, whoa, what about Athens and Sparta? They also had this type of division. And then I started thinking about the ancient philosophers. What would they be if they were living today? Which I found a hilarious topic. And then I started looking into art, and because I'm a painter as well, I started looking into art, and I thought to myself, oh my God, but they are human beings. They must have drama behind, like they must be messy. They must have some situation. No human is, perfect. I started discovering about them, and I started, just putting that into videos. And I think my ADHD helps me here, because I don't stay in one topic. I mean, even if in this video, I have not stayed in one topic. Like it's ancient Greece, then suddenly cinema, then it's philosophy, art movement, culture, psychology. But somehow everything always connects and everything always clicks. You start with Plato, and suddenly you're talking about the modern perception of the self-help gurus and the whole industry they have created. You talk about Sparta, and then you cannot help it but think about the current gym culture. You're thinking about the muses, and you cannot stop but think about the current influencer. And that's what I love to do. I love to find connections and recognize patterns. And I don't want this video to be a lecture and to sound like a lecture. I want it to feel like you're sitting with a friend, with your ADHD, overhyped, overstimulated friend talking about random things. Except these random things are actually interesting, at least for me, they are. On this channel, you will see art history explained simply, philosophy made relatable, ancient stories that still apply today, cultural observations I have, cinema analysis, and unexpected connections. Because some of the most interesting things are the ones that nobody explains in a simple way. I also think we live in times where people want meaning again. People want to connect. People want, but we are surrounded with fast content, with trends, with what is the next thing, what is the next hot thing this summer. And don't get me wrong, I'm also not different than that. But I also believe that people still want depth. They want to separate time of their day to sit down and watch, to learn something interesting, and not only to encourage their popcorn brain. And not only, just to scroll pointlessly. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Take complex ideas and make them feel approachable. So if you find yourself wondering about random things, then you are in the right place. I am Violeta, and this is my corner of the internet, where curiosity leads to conversation. See you in the next one.